For thousands of nonprofits across the state, an executive order by President Donald Trump freezing federal spending on loans and grants has left them uncertain about how they will continue to operate. Last week, several nonprofit leaders attended a day-long summit hosted by the Kentucky Nonprofit Network to learn how to make solid financial decisions in a time of uncertainty.
This event today is all about nonprofit financial management, so really teaching nonprofit leaders, some of whom are finance people, some of whom are not, really how to understand and better use their financials to make smart strategic decisions, especially as we're in an environment right now where nonprofit funding is up in the air, it feels a little bit uncertain, so really helping leaders understand their numbers.
I've seen a couple of administrative turnovers. I think this is the first one where federal funding was immediately addressed as being a possible loss to our nonprofit and then many others. Because we are a federally mandated program, we receive state and federal funding to meet our mission.
We know that 66% of Kentucky's nonprofits receive some part of their revenue from government funding. So it is a huge impact, again, for those directly receiving funds and those who partner with those organizations. Because when kind of the nonprofit ecosystem has a void, somebody else typically has to step in.
If the federal funds are cut in the way that we're seeing projected, there's not enough individual donor base to make up for that. I think we are anxiously watching to see whether we need to do some additional advocacy in the state, do a lot more donor engagement and talks, and figure out how to better diversify our income.
We also talked about forecasting, so really sort of being able to predict into the future your organization's revenue and expenses, and especially in today's climate where federal funding for nonprofits is changing by the day. Really being able to have this forecast will help organizations be stronger and more sustainable.
I think ultimately organizations, if this cuts come to fruition or the pauses continue, will have to make decisions about core programming. What can we continue to offer and how do we fund that? What programs can we no longer offer, and then that ultimately can someone else pick those up? Will we have to lay folks off? And then of course they're all trying to raise additional private dollars. Data tells us that to completely cover the amount of federal dollars that are flowing into the nonprofit sector would require a 282% increase in private philanthropy. I would love to see that happen, but it's very unrealistic. So organizations are trying to raise money, but recognizing the number of folks competing for a very limited amount of dollars, and the tax incentives for the majority of donors to donate to charity no longer exist. So we're saying to Congress, we need charitable giving tax incentives to encourage more people to give. And we're also saying to Congress and the White House, these are vital programs in your district, and we need to protect the work that nonprofits are doing on government's behalf, because communities don't thrive without nonprofits and their work to support their constituents.
The Kentucky Nonprofit Network helped push for House Bill 622 in the Kentucky legislature. It's a measure that reforms state grants and contracts with nonprofits and requires prompt payment on bills. State lawmakers passed the bill this session. It now awaits the governor's signature.